Direct, analytical. An iOS device in lockdown mode represents a maximized defensive perimeter. Every single common attack surface is restricted. Yet forensic analysis shows these systems can be bypassed by threats originating from within the local architecture. The anomaly began with a zero-click extraction of the target's social graph. Over 58 continuous minutes, the malware systematically harvested the contact database. A data transfer of this scale normally triggers network alarms, but local sensors and TLS monitors registered no anomalies. The external perimeter remained silent. This timeline identifies the exact 58-minute extraction window. The proof of the breach exists in these illuminated nodes, system-level X-user fault logs recorded at the precise moments the contact database was being scraped. Forensic assumptions usually focus on the compromise of encrypted tunnels. In this case, the adversary did not attempt to break the encryption between the device and the internet. Instead, they utilized a multi-device relay, a local DNS cage, and a context-aware Trojan to target the system before data ever reached the network stack. The logs suggest the breach functioned within the device's internal architecture, rendering the external firewall irrelevant to the extraction process. To understand how the data vanished, we have to look past the primary device and examine the physical environment. Specifically, a secondary device in the room, a Samsung S24. Advanced implants use a hardware relay to bridge air gaps. This secondary beacon acts as an intermediary, masking the origin of the data before it is sent to the attacker. This chart tracks local network noise. When the Samsung relay was powered off, the background signal drops to the baseline. The iOS implant remains dormant to avoid detection. It only initiates a data transfer when it detects its designated mother relay pinging in close proximity. Powering down the relay device severs the command and control bridge. This creates a quiet zone, preventing the malware from receiving remote instructions and securing the hardware for forensic analysis. Modern APT investigations require the identification of these physical proximity relays to properly isolate the primary target. Normally, an outbound OAuth request travels through the OS network stack directly to an external server. In a DNS cage exploit, malware hijacks the routing table. Outbound traffic bends backward, resolving to the local loopback address 127.0.0.1. The adversary captures this through port 53649. Because the data never reaches the internet, the malware reads the requests in plaintext. The adversary hijacks the OAuth callbacks and harvests session tokens locally before encryption is applied to the outbound packets. To prevent operating system warnings, the implant injects over 80 rogue root certificates into the device's trust store to facilitate a local man-in-the-middle attack. This local collision explains the Safari browser data, specifically the persistent NSURL error domain crashes found in the logs. The browser attempts to verify a secure connection with an external server, but crashes when it hits the malicious local proxy instead. The DNS cage hides the exfiltration from network-based TLS monitoring. The theft is contained within the device's own walls. The investigation now moves to a macOS forensic workstation for active log analysis. This malware operates with context awareness, meaning it actively monitors system states and user actions. The malware triggered a response when the investigator began writing a forensic timeline detailing the contact database extraction. This alert represents a specific anomaly. While the analyst was documenting the breach, the word processor, Pages, suddenly requested permission to access the user's contacts database. The remote access Trojan co-opted a trusted system application to scan the contact list, likely to identify who the investigator was communicating with regarding the breach. The APT also uses active sabotage to disrupt the collection of evidence. By manipulating the browser's document object model, the malware can hide or delete specific UI elements, such as download buttons. This sabotage occurred while the investigator attempted to download a 67-gigabyte Google Takeout archive containing critical cloud telemetry. Forensic analysis in this environment is an interactive battle between the investigator and an active adversary. Investigating a context-aware threat requires a specialized environment, a digital cleanroom. Allowing automated OS updates or conducting live system analysis during a breach can be fatal to the investigation. Standard background operations, the Janitor effect, can overwrite memory buffers and wipe the logs holding the evidence of the crash. The first step is a cold shutdown of all compromised hardware to freeze the system state. Processing the raw logs and the 67-gigabyte archive requires computational leverage. Analysts use air-gapped large language models to index the massive volume of hexadecimal data. However, using AI introduces the risk of the model hallucinating connections and damaging the chain of evidence. Analysts enforce a strict zero hallucination protocol. The AI is restricted from synthesizing data, forced to map every finding directly to a raw hexadecimal source. By conducting granular file-by-file audits, investigators establish an indisputable forensic baseline. The adversary's architecture, physical relays, local DNS hijacking, and real-time behavioral triggers creates a sophisticated panopticon. Defeating a context-aware APT requires absolute forensic discipline and strict environmental control to turn that